Hello and welcome. My name is Aaron Van Dyke.
And I'm Jacqueline Barichka.
We're so happy that you could join us this evening for tonight's webinar. A number of you have already signed into Vimeo's chat and said hello. In case you haven't, please be sure that you've entered your first and last name. That's how you're going to get credit for your FYE experience. If you forgot to sign in with your first and last name, that's okay. Just go ahead and type your full name into the chat area. Jacqueline is going to be moderating tonight's chat, and we want to make sure that you keep her busy tonight. So go ahead and say hello, and again, enter your first and last name. Also, we're going to be using Poll Everywhere tonight. It's an opportunity for us to get to know you a little bit better. And if you didn't have a chance to fill out that survey before the webinar, don't worry. We'll go ahead and fill in those slides a little bit later on. So be sure you've got your mobile device handy and the Poll Everywhere website at hand. So you're probably wondering, why are you here this evening? What's the point of tonight's webinar? Well, the point is for us to begin our intellectual journey together here at Fairfield. I thought a good way to start that journey is to actually take a trip back to the 1900s World Fair in Paris. There they made a prediction about what education was going to be like in the year 2000. You can see a picture of that prediction on your screen. And there they predicted that faculty members would take books off of shelves, throw those books into a machine, a crank would be turned, and the information in those books would be downloaded into students' heads. At Fairfield, that's not how we approach education. It's not a data dump from the faculty member or a book or a website into your head. Rather, education is a conversation. It's a dialogue between us, the faculty members and staff and administration here at the university, and you, the students. And we're going to start that conversation together here tonight. Importantly, in tonight's conversation, there are no silly questions, and I really want to emphasize that. So please be sure to send any questions you have through Vimeo's chat. The conversation is going to continue after tonight's webinar through the first year academic gathering. And I want to make sure you have that on your calendar. It's going to be September 4th at 5 p.m. on Bellarmine Lawn. And you can see that marked here on your screen. It's going to be a great opportunity for you to get to know other students and faculty and administrators, and for us to take a deeper dive into the readings that we're going to talk about tonight. In any conversation, you want to know your sources, right? The text that you're working with, the websites that you're going to, and also the people that you're talking with. So let's take a moment to get to know the moderators, us, who are here tonight. And let's go ahead and start with Jacqueline. Jacqueline, do you want to tell our viewers a little bit more about yourself?
Sure, I'd love to. First of all, let me welcome all of you to Fairfield University. We're so excited for you to come. And I'd love to start by telling you about where I'm from. And so I am actually from Detroit, Michigan. And you can see by the icon there that it's the Motor City. It's also the home of Motown music. And after Detroit, I lived all over the country. And I finally settled at the College of William and Mary. And at William and Mary, which is the second oldest college in the United States, I had a great experience. And it was so great. I felt very privileged by the education I got there. And I wanted to give back. And I decided to join Teach for America. I was in Teach for America for 2 years down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, at a small little Catholic elementary school.
Oh, wow.
And I loved it. It ignited my passion for teaching, which I've carried with me ever since. But it carried me back home to Detroit, Michigan, and Wayne State University. And at Wayne State University, I continued my study of political science, which I really enjoyed. And I was able to get my master's degree in political science. And yet, a little bit more adventure was on the horizon, and I decided to finish my graduate studies in New York City at the Graduate Center at the City University of New York.
Oh, wow.
Still studying political science. I loved New York so much, and I think all of you are going to love it too. When you come here to Fairfield, you'll have so many opportunities, right, from our faculty who take students into museums, but there's opportunities to go to Broadway shows, all kinds of amazing events.
That's actually one of my favorite things about working here at Fairfield is, being able to hop on the train, go into the city, come back. It's phenomenal. Yeah.
It really is. And I actually left the Graduate Center when I finished my doctorate there and came to Fairfield University, where I feel really lucky to have been for the last 17 years as a politics professor. As a politics professor here, I've had so many opportunities. There's really a world of them available to you. And part of those world of opportunities took me to all places to the East African country of Tanzania.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And to Dar es Salaam. In Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, I have a partnership with Loyola High School, which is a Jesuit high school there. And it, in many ways, is my second home. And it opened up so many new and different pathways for me. And indeed, this fall, like all of you out there, I'm starting a new opportunity here at Fairfield University, and I will be working in the provost's office, working with faculty and with students around their creative and scholarly community engagement. And I'm really looking forward to welcoming all of you in the fall and the world of opportunities that wait for you here.
That's great. And it's so wonderful, Jacqueline, that you're going to be in that role, because I know there's so many students across campus that are engaged in these scholarly activities, students who work with faculty in their research labs, work with them in humanities projects in the Humanities Institute. Yeah, there's so much research that goes on our campus.
It's really true. And service learning opportunities, working in the community, and all kinds of things. So we're excited for you all to come.
It's great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
A little bit about me. So I was born and raised in a small apple farming town in Yakima, Washington. It's the eastern part of Washington State. And then I hopped across the mountains onto the other side of Washington State and attended Seattle University for my undergraduate degree in chemistry. SU is a sister Jesuit institution. It's very similar to Fairfield University. And then from there, I hopped across the country to Cambridge, where I studied organic chemistry at MIT. Really loved my time there on the East Coast. But I was ready for a change. I really wanted to try something different. So like Jacqueline, I spent some time close to the Motor City. I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and did my postdoctoral training at the University of Michigan, which I really fell in love with Ann Arbor. It's really a fantastic city. And then I was fortunate enough to receive a job here at Fairfield University, where I've been for the last 5 years in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry, where I teach organic chemistry and biochemistry, and occasionally I get to teach a culinary chemistry class. And I really feel very fortunate for that. I actually get to live here on campus as a faculty member in residence in one of our residential colleges. And in fact, every one of you is going to be receiving an invitation to our brand new Ignatian Leadership Residential College, which is going to be opening up this fall. The residential colleges are open to sophomores, so you'll have an opportunity to apply to this in your sophomore year. It's a chance where you can take a course together and live together with students. It's really a phenomenal opportunity. So be sure to save the date. That's going to be September 5th, and there will be a community barbecue. There'll be tours of the new building, so we really hope that you'll be able to join us for that. All right, now let's take a chance to get to know you a little bit better. So if you haven't had an opportunity to fill out the Poll Everywhere questions, now's your chance to fill in your survey responses, we'd like to know where you're joining us from tonight. And I see that we have a strong turnout from Connecticut, as well as New York and New Jersey. I see that we actually have some individuals from outside of the United States who are joining us. Perhaps you could chat with Jacqueline and let us know where you're from. We'd love to know where you're joining us tonight. As President Nemec tells us, we are a global institution, and we really value our global partnership. So we'd love to hear where you're joining us from tonight. A strong turnout as well from Massachusetts, which is fantastic. Love to see our West Coast representation, so California, that's pretty fantastic, as well as the Mid-Atlantic region, so welcome to you guys. I think it's phenomenal that we have people from so many places joining us. It was great to hear the students earlier saying that one of the things that they're looking forward to is building friendships when they come to Fairfield University. And I think you're going to be meeting students from a lot of different places when you join us here.
So we actually have a couple of our outside of the U.S. respondents.
Yeah.
We have one person from Ireland,
Wow.
Hanoi, Vietnam.
Oh my gosh.
And another person from Vietnam. So welcome all of you.
Yeah, welcome everybody. This is really fantastic. All right, let's see which school or college has the best showing tonight. Well, it looks like for now we have the best turnout from the College of Arts and Sciences. And then it looks like it's pretty neck and neck between the Dolan School of Business and our always sharp nurses from the Egan School of Nursing. And then, we have a solid, foundation from the School of Engineering as well. So we'll give you a few more seconds to enter into that poll in case there are any last minute students who haven't had a chance to fill that out. Maybe there are a few more nurses out there who might want to bump up the numbers in the School of Nursing. But right now it looks like the Dolan School of Business is taking second place. I'm really excited for the School of Business. You guys are getting a brand new building very soon, which is going to be beautiful. The Egan School just got a new building recently, so also very beautiful. Number of faculty have the opportunity to teach in that building, which is wonderful. And the College of Arts and Sciences, we teach all over the campus, so we're really fortunate to use a number of our great facilities here on campus. Well, it looks like our numbers are holding pretty steady, so it looks like the School of Business takes second place tonight, so good showing from the School of Business. All right, let's see where you'll be coming from each morning. Which residence hall has the best turnout tonight? So we have, for now, it looks like we've got the best showing from Campion, and looks like we're kind of neck and neck between Regis and Jogues right now. Yeah, it's kind of going back and forth. Again, we'll give you a few more seconds to see if we can flip that over. We'll have some commuters joining us, which is really fantastic. The commuters on our campus bring so much life and vitality to our classes. We have a beautiful commuter lounge space on our campus, which I know the Office of Residence Life works really hard to make sure that those students have a really special place where they can work and socialize with one another. I, again, want to emphasize that all the opportunities on our campus, we really make sure that those are open to commuter students. So commuter students can take our service learning courses. They can take advantage of all the opportunities in our Res College courses and our Res College program. All right, it looks like Jogues is still in second place, and Regis is going to take third. Gonzaga's ticking up, but looks like Gonzaga's going to take fourth place tonight. Campion, you're going to have some great things to look forward to when you get here on campus. So I'm really excited for the changes that are taking place in your building. So stay tuned for the upcoming additions to your building. All right, thinking ahead, where might you like to study or serve abroad? So again, if you haven't had a chance to fill this out, please give us your feedback. for now, it looks like Italy is a very popular place to study abroad. I had an opportunity to actually do a study abroad in Italy when I was an undergraduate. I did Renaissance art history and philosophy. It's really great. But where are some other places that people might want to study? Ireland's very popular. Australia. Jacqueline, you were just in Australia.
I was just in
right?
Australia.
Yeah.
Indeed. I got back about a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
And I went scuba diving for the first time on the Great Barrier Reef. It was amazing.
Oh my
I
gosh.
swam with sea turtles.
Yeah.
I saw manta ray.
Yeah.
It was absolutely stunning.
That's awesome. Wow. Great.
Yeah, thanks.
We have programs in a number of different locations, though. So I again want to emphasize, right, South Africa, an amazing place to study. Brazil, I know our biology department takes students down there, an amazing place to study. Spain, the place where Ignatius of Loyola is from, an amazing place to study. Guatemala, Nicaragua, all these places where we have really deep partnerships with fantastic academic programming. And I see we have some students who are saying, well, there's a place I'd like to study, but it's not listed here. Please let us know, because we're always interested to expand our course offerings abroad. So I had mentioned that Ignatius of Loyola was from Spain. Ignatius of Loyola, in case you're not familiar with this individual, is actually the man who founded the Society of Jesus. And the Society of Jesus is kind of the long term for the individuals who we call the Jesuits. The Jesuits were the order of priests in the Catholic Church who founded this institution, Fairfield University. And Ignatius, when he was a young man, he dreamed of doing chivalrous deeds that really only benefited himself. So he's a really big daydreamer. And he was also a soldier. And this is a painting that I really love from Seattle University. And what this painting is representing is a battle. And Ignatius is the man who's in the red cloak. And I've indicated him with an arrow here. I would like you to let us know on the Vimeo chat, is Ignatius being depicted in victory or in defeat? Again, go ahead and hop on Vimeo's chat and let Jacqueline know, do you think Ignatius is being depicted in victory or defeat, and why? Okay, so maybe you might want to think about his posture, or maybe the composition of the individuals around Ignatius.
So we are getting some responses.
Oh, all right.
So far, lots of defeat.
Okay.
Yep.
Again, so for those of you who've maybe responded, let's dig a little bit deeper. Why do you think defeat? What in your gut makes you think defeat? Again, you could think about the use of color maybe in this painting, or the way people are positioned, around Ignatius, or even the posture of Ignatius himself. Again, let's give a reason as to why you think either victory or you think defeat. The best thing about this is there's no course credit for this. So, I'm not giving you a grade. So again, we just want to have a conversation with you about this. So do you think victory or do you think defeat, and why? And some things you might want to think about would be the, one thing I'm hearing is kind of the posture of Ignatius is that Ignatius is leaning back. So that's one reason that I'm hearing, kind of reasons why people are thinking defeat. So that's a great observation. Another thing would be the way that people are kind of clustered around Ignatius. That's another great observation. I'm also seeing that I'm also seeing kind of the use of color. So these are great observations. Indeed, this is depicting Ignatius in defeat. So this is from actually the Battle of Pamplona. And in this battle, Ignatius's leg was basically shattered by a cannonball. So this was really a catastrophe. And the result of this was that Ignatius spent many, many months recuperating from this injury. And this gave him a lot of time to think. Okay. And during his recovery, Ignatius realized that he wanted to spend his life helping others instead of, spending his life merely helping himself. And Ignatius realized that in order for him to have the maximal effect helping others, he needed a college education. So at the age of 33, right? Think about going to college, starting college at the age of 33, right? Ignatius entered the University of Paris. And he met a number of his lifelong friends at the University of Paris. And that's where he really formed this idea that he wanted to become an individual who served others. And that's where we get this Jesuit ideal of being men and women for and with others. So that's something you're going to hear a lot about when you come to Fairfield University. So when Ignatius was spending time in college and through his later years, he developed this idea that there will be 4 chapters to your life experience. And I think we can say that there will also be these 4 chapters in your college experience. And that's how I picked the readings for this first year academic gathering. So here are the 4 chapters: longing, love, loss, and limitlessness. So let's go to you and have you tell us where you want to start tonight's conversation. Where do you want to go with the readings? So again, if you haven't had a chance, hop on to Poll Everywhere and vote for the chapter of readings that you would like to start tonight's conversation. So do you want to start with longing? Do you want to start with love? Do you want to start with loss? Or do you want to start with limitlessness? Again, these are all going to be part of your experience here at Fairfield. So wherever you want to start, we can start tonight's conversation. But again, if you haven't had a chance to vote, go ahead and hop in there and let us know. And I am seeing a good turnout for love. So perhaps we should go to chapter 2. I'm thinking, chapter 2. Let's go to love. All right, chapter 2, love. In this chapter, I asked you to take a look at 2 readings. So one reading was by Robert Bringhurst, and the other reading was by Anthony DeMello. Robert Bringhurst is a Canadian poet and author, and Anthony DeMello is a Jesuit priest from India. He is a writer and a master storyteller. And the theme in these readings was really around the question of what does authentic love look like? In the first reading by Robert Bringhurst, the question that really we wanted you to think about was, what do you think is happening in this poem? And that was a question that I posed on Quip for everyone. And thank you so much for your responses. You had such thoughtful responses. If I had to summarize kind of the theme of a number of your responses, here's what I would say. I would say that many of you picked up on the fact that it was a female narrator, and that this female narrator was explaining to a man that his poetry is utterly loveless. And many of you said or speculated that the reason his poetry is loveless is because he's never truly fallen in love. Let's take a look at a really key excerpt from this poem. Here's the excerpt. These poems are as heartless as birdsong, as unmeant as elm leaves, which if they love, love only the wide blue sky and the air and the idea of elm leaves. Self-love is an ending, she said, and not a beginning. Love means love of the thing sung, not of the song or the singing. Jacqueline, is there a certain genre of music that you really enjoy?
I always find this to be a really hard question, but I think I go back to being from Detroit, which is the home of Motown.
Oh, Motown. All right.
And I think that oftentimes folks know these songs. So a little Marvin Gaye, heard it through the grapevine.
Yeah.
I love those songs, but also deep love for Madonna. I know it's old school, but she's also was born and raised in the Detroit area.
Okay.
So there was always a lot of urban mythology about her. And when I was coming up in the 80s, I mean, you know, Material Girl, Like a Virgin. But I have to say kind of those Motown classics are still really fun. So that's a genre of music I really like.
Okay. So if I were to say that I love Material Girl, right? If I like that one song, would you say that I am like a lover of all Motown music? Like I appreciate and love all Motown music?
Definitely not.
But I like one example from it. So like, why can't I appreciate all Motown music?
Well, you may not know all Motown music just by knowing that one song. And oftentimes within these kind of genres, there are so many different elements to those genres that bring, although they're categorized in the same way, have such rich diversity and difference among them that to know one is not to know them all.
Okay, so maybe like Madonna doesn't equate to like Marvin Gaye.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, indeed. And
Okay.
I'm sure Madonna wouldn't think that either. Right?
That's probably true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very different vocal ranges. Yeah.
Right. But interestingly enough, both of them are oftentimes categorized as pop music.
Okay.
Even though one is more Motown, and I would say, you know, Madonna is way more pop, right?
Yeah.
And kind of closer to a Beyonce maybe than a Marvin Gaye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I could see that. Okay.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
So maybe if I like Madonna, but I don't appreciate all of Motown music, maybe I have a narrow kind of love for Motown, and maybe that's kind of relating to this narrow kind of love that this narrator is chastising this man for in this poem. You know, she's saying like, the poems that you write are reflecting a really thin, narrow kind of love that really doesn't represent the kind of all-encompassing, unconditional love that someone who's experienced that kind of love would know if they've encountered it.
I think that sounds right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if that's what this author is trying to get across, right, that there's a narrow, superficial kind of love that's out there, I think what Anthony DeMello, our second author in this chapter, is bringing to us is what authentic love really looks like. And more importantly, where authentic love really begins. And Anthony DeMello would say that authentic love starts with the individual. Let's take a look at an excerpt from one of his poems. He says, I was neurotic for years. I was anxious and depressed and selfish. Everyone kept telling me to change. Then one day he said to me, don't change. I love you just as you are. I relaxed, I came alive, and suddenly I changed. Now I know that I couldn't really change until I found someone who would love me whether I changed or not. Again, what Anthony DeMello and what I would say our Jesuit Catholic tradition is trying to communicate is that there is an authentic kind of love that has to begin with the individual. that there's a level of self-acceptance that we want all of our students to discover during their time here at Fairfield. And you have to find that before you can give that generous love to friends, to family, and to others. However, we know that not every day is a perfect day, right? There are troubles that we go through in our lives, right? There are holes in our lives. There are things that make our life incomplete. So let's go ahead and talk about maybe what are some of the things that shape our life. And I think our longings and desires are one thing that give form and shape to our life. So let's go ahead and circle back to chapter number 1, and let's take a look at those foundational readings. So let's see in chapter number 1 what some of the readings were that we looked at. All right, in chapter number 1, I asked everyone to take a look at some really fantastic passages from Frederick Buechner. So Frederick Buechner is from New York City, just down the road from us here at Fairfield, Connecticut. He's an American theologian, a writer, a poet, and a preacher. And this excerpt that I asked you to read is really getting at what are our deepest motivations, right? What makes us human beings? I asked you on Quip to give me 10 words or phrases that motivate your head and heart. And I went ahead and took your responses. Thank you so much for those. And I put them into a word cloud. So, right, in a word cloud, the bigger the word, the more frequent the response. So here is your word cloud from the class of 2022. And this is updated from our last webinar. So you can see that for you, one of the most important things is family. That's what ties your head and heart together at this place and time. Followed by that are friends, happiness, love, success, future, compassion, and determination. One of my other favorite things that I saw in this was acceptance, kindness, music, and community. I think these are fantastic. And if you want to see the top 10 words, here are the top 10 words: family, friends, love, success, happiness, compassion, faith, future, goals, and others. Again, I think these are really fantastic things that our students are coming in with, and I'm really excited to see where our students go with these motivators.
I think that's right. And it really reflects the early comments that many of you submitted around what were you most excited about on your first day here at Fairfield.
Yeah.
I think this reflects it perfectly.
Yeah. No, I think you're totally right, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
Great. Let's take a look at one of the key excerpts from Message in the Stars. For what we need to know, Buechner writes, of course, is not just that God exists, but that there is a God right here in the thick of our day-by-day lives who may not be writing messages about himself in the stars, but who in one way or another is trying to get messages through our blindness as we move around here knee-deep in the fragrant muck and misery and marvel of the world. It is not objective proof of God's existence that we want, whether we use religious language for it or not. The experience of God's presence, but the experience of God's presence. So consider this. Remember in this scene, Buechner had written this beautiful, almost movie-like set where God had written God's name in the stars, and for a moment the entire world stopped to look up at this. But then there was this one little child who kind of looked up in the stars and said, well, so what? So what if God exists? And that's what prompted Buechner to pose this question, right? Buechner saying that the most fundamental question that drives our desires really isn't the objective proof of God, right? So Buechner is suggesting that we're not seeking objective proof of God, right? So whether God exists, but rather what we're seeking are encounters with the sacred in our day-to-day lives, right? So can we find the sacred in a cup of tea that starts our day, or a cup of coffee, in that perfect shot that we make in a soccer game or a basketball game, or in an endless view, right? That perfect view that we find during a hike or in yoga practice, right? Can we find the sacred in those moments? Here's a question that I want to pose to you. So get your hands on those keyboards. Where do you find the sacred in the everyday moments of your life? Just think about kind of what happened to you in the last 24 hours. Was there a moment, and it doesn't have to be this transcendent, trumpets blowing, but was there a moment where you felt like there was some encounter with something sacred in the last 12 hours, in the last 24 hours? Just rewind the day almost like a movie reel in your mind. Where did you find the sacred in your life? Again, go ahead and hop on Vimeo's chat. Send in those, very brief, a couple words, a short sentence. We're not judging you on grammar yet, so, you don't have to use proper punctuation. Just send something in to Jacqueline.
We're getting some nice responses.
Great. What are we hearing?
From everything from driving to work to listening to music, being with family, spin class.
Oh, spin class. Yeah. I could see how that would be transcendent. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Watching the sunrise. And I think a lot of folks are talking about going to the gym, spending time with family, listening to music, kind of the things that make up our everyday lives, in which those moments of the everyday, we find the experience of the other and the expanse and the transcendence that the poem is communicating.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. In our Jesuit Catholic tradition, we have this word called sacramental, and it's that idea that there is the potential to find something sacred in everything, right? From writing a report to going to the gym to brewing that cup of coffee in the morning. Yeah.
Petting your cat.
Yeah. If you have a pet, oh my gosh, I know so many of my students, they are so excited to go home for break and see their dog or their cat. Yeah.
Right.
That's totally sacramental. Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So, that's fantastic.
There are lots of others, dancing, being in nature. So it sounds like physical activity, being at the beach, which I hope a lot of you have been able to do this summer. I know I've been able to get away a little bit.
Yeah.
So these are really great answers.
That's great. Thank you so much, everybody, for your responses. These are really fantastic. Great. So why don't we go ahead and transition from, the sacred to loss, chapter 3, because, Ignatius knew that not everything is rosy, not everything's perfect, and there are going to be times in our lives when we have to face that. Loss is just part of being human.
It really is.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and transition to chapter 3, loss. So in chapter 3, I asked you to read an excerpt from Christian Wyman, who is a really fantastic author. One of the things I really appreciate about Christian Wyman is his ability to wrestle with really deep, transcendent questions, but not necessarily give us an answer to those questions. He is a poet and an essayist. He's someone who actually wrestled with a very aggressive cancer, and he survived that illness. But I think a lot of his writing around, loss and questions around, what does contemporary faith look like, really come out of that encounter with his illness. Here's a quote from an interview that I found really striking that I'd like to share with you. So this is from an interview with Christian Wyman. He said, "I have no illusions about adding to sophisticated theological thinking," right? So he's not claiming to be a theologian. He says, "But I think there are a ton of people out there who are what you might call unbelieving believers. People whose consciousness is completely modern, and yet who would have this strong spiritual hunger in them. And I would like to say something helpful to those people." So again, his book is not meant to be a book that's trying to convert anyone or a book that's trying to make a complicated theological argument. Rather, he is just trying, I think, to crack open in real and honest ways his wrestling with his identity and his faith. And I found that really refreshing, and I hope you did too. Let's take a look at what I think is a really key excerpt from My Bright Abyss. And you'll remember that this is from a chapter where he's dealing with the death of his great aunt and his grandmother. He says, "Forget religion. Even atheists want to die well, or want those they love to die well, which has to mean more than simply a quiet resignation to complete annihilation. No, to die well, even for the religious, is to accept not only their own terror and sadness, but the terrible holes we leave in the lives of others. At the same time, to die well, even for the atheist, is to believe that there is some way of dying into life, rather than simply away from it. Some form of survival that love makes possible." Some days there are holes that we carry inside of ourselves, or holes that we end up creating in other people. It might be an anxiety that we have about our classes, right? Even faculty have anxiety about classes. I'll be honest about that. It might be anxiety about living up to others' expectations, right? There might be anxiety around future opportunities. So perhaps it's a club that someone might want to be involved with, or a research opportunity, or an internship possibility, right, over the summer or during the academic year. Maybe it's just friction with friends that is inevitable in our daily lives. And what Wyman is asking us to consider is, what can bring life to this emptiness, right? Not just cover it over like we would a hole in a wall, right? Just patch it up. But what is a way to truly fill in that hole? What is a way to truly make it whole? So this was actually a question that I posed to you on Quip. Rooted in love, what sustains you in times of loss and grief? And again, I made a word cloud from your responses, so thank you so much for the authenticity and the honesty of your responses. I was really, really blown away by it. For you, you said family and friends are by far the biggest source of support for you. And I'm so glad to hear that. One thing I really want to stress is that as you transition to Fairfield, Fairfield is here through the faculty, the staff, and the administrators, and all the resources that are here on campus through the counseling center and all of the other offices here on campus. We are here to support you, and we want to combat that loss that you are going to experience by building relationships with you. Another reading question that I sent out to you was around the idea of resume virtues. And resume virtues are really things that we put on a CV, right? So these are skills that we would cultivate for a job, like I'm a great note taker, or I'm really good at connecting and networking with people, versus eulogy virtues, which are character traits. Character traits are things like, generosity, compassion, the ability to bring out the best in others. And I asked you, what eulogy virtues do you want to build during your time here at Fairfield? Again, thank you so much for responding to this question. Most frequently, these were the eulogy virtues that I saw on Quip. You said that you wanted to be friendly, trustworthy, accepting and honest, considerate, hardworking, and service-oriented. What really stood out to me is that you, the class of 2022, said that you want to accept and understand those who are different from you. And I think that is a phenomenal eulogy virtue. I'd like you to get those hands back on the keyboard and tell me what's one thing you can do to meet someone different from yourself the very first week you come here to Fairfield. So again, go ahead and tell Jacqueline what's one thing you can do, one concrete specific thing you can do to meet someone different from yourself the very first week at Fairfield. Go ahead and hop onto Vimeo's chat and let us know some ideas. Again, you don't have to, build a website to do this. We're not looking for anything big. You don't have to start a GoFundMe or anything.
Right.
But what's just one simple thing that you could do to meet someone different from yourself?
We're starting to hear from folks.
Great.
Some great ideas. Join a club. That's
join
the
a club.
perfect way.
Yeah.
Meet some new folks, make some new friends. Other folks are really just, talking to people.
Oh, talking to people. Yeah.
Reaching out to somebody who maybe you just obviously haven't met, because that's going to be the case
Yeah.
for our class that's coming in
Yeah.
the next few weeks.
Oh, that's fantastic. Great.
But I'm getting lots of join clubs, and also introducing yourself. A very basic and fundamental way to meet somebody new is to say, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah, that is great. An advisee of mine had told this great story where she said she saw someone and she loved her tennis shoes. And she said, "Those are great tennis shoes. I just love them." And they started a conversation, and now they're roommates, they're best friends, and all because of a pair of tennis shoes. So,
That's awesome.
Yeah, really don't be afraid to reach out to one another and start a conversation and just say hello.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's really what we're hearing from a lot of you, is that you plan on joining a club. And though there are so many clubs at Fairfield University, I think you can find one that you'll enjoy, or you can create your own. We've
Right.
had students they have a particular interest in maybe it's martial arts or yoga, or it can be anything.
Yeah.
And you can even start your own club. So that's an exciting opportunity. Other folks are saying that they're going to talk to people in their hall. Great idea.
Great.
And go to the gym, walk around campus.
Yeah.
And I think that you'll easily meet people at Fairfield.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Thank you. And don't forget, please go to office hours. Faculty want to get to know you. We really do want to get to know you. So don't be afraid to go to office hours.
Absolutely. And it's really true. Building relationships and getting to know your faculty members can open up the door to all kinds of other opportunities as well.
Great. All right, let's go ahead and move on now to Chapter 4, Limitlessness. So in Chapter 4, we took some excerpts from Anthony DeMello. Anthony DeMello is one of my favorite writers. We met him earlier on. So again, he's a Jesuit priest from India, a writer, and a master storyteller. The theme from these writings was the theme of discernment. Discernment is a really fundamental Jesuit idea. Here's basically what discernment means. It means selecting the best option between several good options, all right? And this is something you're going to practice a lot here at Fairfield, right? So for those of you maybe who haven't chosen a major yet, all the majors we offer here at Fairfield are great options. Picking one is discernment. When you think about the internship possibilities that you have coming up at Fairfield, all the internship possibilities are great options. Picking one is an example of discernment. When you think about where you're going to live after you graduate, that's discernment too. So we're going to have opportunities for you to practice discernment a lot. One of my favorite stories out of this reading was called Cotton and Salt in the River. So you might remember that was the story where the donkey gets loaded with salt one day and then goes into the river, and the water washes all the salt away, and the donkey's elated. And then the second day, the panniers get packed with cotton, and then they get wet. The cotton gets heavier, and the donkey almost drowns. Well, the moral, I think, of this story is that what makes one person come alive may not make another person come alive. And when I asked you on Quip to let us know what makes you come alive, here were some of your responses. You said running races, right? Traveling to new places, working with children, seeing smaller steps add up to larger steps, reading, service projects. And I hope those of you who enjoy service projects will take advantage of all the service learning courses that we have here at Fairfield. Listening to music, volunteering, going to church, being active in faith organizations. The point is, right, someone who could run a half marathon, that would probably not make me come alive. So the process of discernment is really a lifelong skill that we want to help you cultivate here at Fairfield. How do we tie all of these 4 chapters together? Well, remember, we started with longing, identifying what your deepest motivation is. And I actually suspect that what you think is your deepest motivation right now probably will not be your deepest motivation when you graduate from us 4 years from now. So I'm really excited to see how this evolves for you into, for all of us here at Fairfield to accompany you through this process. But your deepest motivation, your longing, that informs limitlessness, right? Your desires, your motivations, that helps you pick the best option from all possible options. And your values help shape that. Your deepest motivation, your longing, is fulfilled by love. And love cultivates in us an attitude of generosity, an attitude that helps us give back to others. And the genius, I think, of Ignatius was to put all of these steps in this order, because when we cultivate an attitude of generosity, that sustains us through periods of loss, right? Think about the individuals who you named that help sustain you, friends and family. Those are people who love you. And one of the things that we hope to cultivate in you during your time here at Fairfield is for you to be men and women for and with others, so that as we carve that generous spirit into ourselves and into others, we become loving people, not just for the people that we know, but that we come to love those who are on the margins of society, and we can stand with those who are in times of loss. And eventually, those periods of loss in everyone give way to limitlessness. So how can we empower everyone in the world so they can discern the best possible opportunities for them? I'd like to pause for a moment and just ask if there are any questions. Again, there are no silly questions. I want to emphasize that, and I think Jacqueline would agree. As someone who has spent even more time in the classroom than I have, there are no silly questions. So, yeah, if you have any questions on any of the readings or anything that we didn't talk about tonight, please send those questions into Jacqueline, because we certainly have a few minutes that we're happy to address those questions if we can. So again, any questions about anything, we are more than happy to do our best to answer those for you.
So far, no questions.
All right.
So that means you did a great job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's always nice to hear. Well, we are so looking forward to have you joining us here on campus. And again, just a reminder, our first year academic gathering in the afternoon on Bellarmine Lawn is going to be an opportunity for us to gather as an entire first year class and for us to talk a little bit more about these readings in detail. And thank you so much for joining us. It was really a privilege to spend time with everyone.
Thank you so much.